The July 10, 2019 Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners meeting is convened. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Platt?
Here.
Commissioner Gambetti? Here. Commissioner Moreland Capuya?
Here.
Commissioner Myers?
Here.
Chair Cruz?
Here. Thank you. All right, we'll start with commissioner reports. Commissioner Platt?
Yes, on June 13th, I represented Prosper Portland at the Foster Streetscape inaugural event, which was very fun, sunny day. And June 28th, I chaired Hacienda CDC's Board of Directors meeting. And yesterday, July 9th, I met with Joanne, Prosper Portland staff member, to explore some possibilities for creative reuse of a warehouse facility over in on Swan Island.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Gambetti?
No report.
Commissioner Myers?
I have one. June 25th was the last Broadway Corridor Steering Committee meeting, and I attended that.
Great. Commissioner Moreland Capuya? All right. And I just have one item this month. On June 20th, I attended and spoke at the Woody Guthrie Place Apartments grand opening event, which was a really great event. It's a project led by the Rose CDC, and we're really pleased with how it turned out. So that was great. Executive Director Branham.
Good afternoon, Chair Cruz and Commissioners. It's been a quiet month for me as I was on vacation for a couple weeks, but the team and board kept things moving forward. So I want to appreciate Commissioner Platt for joining City Commissioner Chloe Udaly and PBOT staff for the dedication of the Foster Streetscape project. And thank you to Chair Cruz for representing Prosper and joining Rose CDC and the Lentz community in commemorating Woody Guthrie. We are just thrilled that all 4 of those projects in Lentz Town Center are now open and really creating a vibrant, inclusive new town center and community. So I want to highlight a few upcoming meetings and events. The Hill Block Project Working Group meeting is this evening, July 10th, at the New Song Community Church at 5:30 p.m. And this Friday, July 12th, I will have the opportunity to speak at the launch party for the new Black American Chamber of Commerce. Prosper Portland is proud to be a founding partner organization and to be able to support the Chamber's mission of enhancing, educating, and empowering the local African American business and professional community. So you can find out more on our website if you'd like to join or attend. Next Thursday, July 8th, I have the opportunity to serve as a panelist for the Bridgeliner Reporting event series, which is really focused on the best practices trip that you heard about from Ashley Henry at the last board meeting, and focuses on 2 questions, which is what does it really mean to keep Portland Portland as the city grows, and what can we learn from San Francisco and Seattle and other peer cities about how to and how not to create shared prosperity through economic growth. The event will be at WeWork Custom House, and the panel will start at 6:30 p.m. It's open to the public. I also want to invite everyone to the official grand opening celebration for the 6 small retailers of Alberta Commons on Saturday, June 20th. The community celebration will run from 10 a.m. to 3:30. Did I say June? Thank you. July 20th. From 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Alberta Commons, which is on the corner of Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Alberta Street. The event will feature food and art, makers, music, entertainment, and community. This is an opportunity to support the 3 first participants in our affordable commercial retail program, which we've learned a lot from, and we think it would be great to really come out and rally and support these great local businesses. So looking towards August, there are a couple of other items that I want to make sure are on people's calendars. The first is the Vanport Jazz Festival, which is Saturday, August 3rd, and you can find out more information at vanportjazzfestival.com. And finally, the Jade Night Market on Saturday, August 24th, and again, the following Saturday, August 31st. I think those are both can't-miss events, and you will see Prosper Portland represented, and we'll have staff there to answer questions. I also want to recognize 3 great new members of the Prosper Portland team who are here with us. We're delighted to welcome them. I'll start with Roger Gonzalez, who is our new project manager in Equity, Governance, and Communications Department. He's joining us from Metro, where he served as policy coordinator and then chief of staff for former council president Tom Hughes, and most recently as policy advisor to council president Lynn Peterson. Roger will lead our process to craft a community benefits agreement on the Broadway corridor project and to develop a holistic approach to public benefit agreements across our agency. Roger was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and attended the University of Texas at Austin, where he obtained a BS in chemistry and got his graduate degree from the Lyndon Johnson School of Public Affairs. Roger considers himself a scientist and a public servant, which is a very cool combination, and values levity and humor in the workplace. And he's happy when the sun comes out. So we're thrilled to have Roger join us. Also thrilled to have Michelle Planbeck, who is also a new project manager in the Equity, Governance, and Communications Department. Michelle brings a decade of experience working for state, county, and city governments, creating legislative agendas, researching, creating, and passing policies and budgets, and staffing committees, commissions, and boards. She was most recently Mayor Ted Wheeler's legislative director. Michelle will lead the new year-round engagement process with the Budget Advisory Committee and engage on our board and city council processes. So you'll be seeing a lot of Michelle, and we're excited to have her. She was born and raised in Portland and attended the University of Oregon, studying history and Romance languages. Outside of work, she's a huge Blazers fan and enjoys cooking, hiking, and farmers markets. So delighted to have Michelle on the team. And last but certainly not least, Carl Dinkelspiel joins the Development and Investment Department as our new development manager as of 2 days ago, so this is day 2. He joins us from the Portland Housing Bureau, our sister agency, where he managed 3 teams and collectively delivered the Bureau's production programs, so multifamily, single family, and all of the development incentives. At Prosper Portland, Carl will lead a team that invests and engages in public-private partnerships, community-based development, and relationship management, so you'll also see a lot of Carl. This, in some ways, is a homecoming. Carl actually started in 2005 at this organization in the housing department, and then went over to the Portland Housing Bureau in 2010 when that was created. He's originally from Boston, Massachusetts. He also has experience in land use planning, zoning, and community and economic development. When not at work, you can find Carl on the river in his canoe, on the roads in his bike, in the backyard gardening, or my favorite, working on his newfound interest in singing. So karaoke might be in the cards at some point. So we're just delighted to have Carl join the team. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Well, welcome, Roger, Michelle, and Carl. We're delighted to have you. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, so next up, would someone like to make a motion to approve the June 12, 2019 minutes?
So moved.
Anyone? Thank you. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And then we have no public comments today, I don't think. Next, we have our consent agenda. So we have 4 consent resolutions to adopt. Would someone like to make a motion to adopt resolutions number 7317, 7318, 7319, and 7322? Or, in the alternative, if anybody wants to discuss those motions or resolutions, please let me know. Nope.
Make a motion that we adopt all 3.
Second.
Or all, sorry, all of
Yeah,
the, all 4 consent agenda.
Great.
Second.
And a second? Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, okay, thank you. Passed unanimously. Next item is our annual election of officers. This is a annual item, and would someone like to make a motion to approve our officer slate for the coming year?
So moved.
Great. And our slate is me as chair, Commissioner Myers as Commissioner, yeah, that's okay. Commissioner Myers as vice chair, and Commissioner Gambetti as treasurer. All right, would someone like to make a second?
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
right, great, thank you. All right. Well, that's okay. That's okay. All right. Let's see. Next up, we have an information item. This is item number 11. And this is an update on the Prosper Portland real estate property plans. Amy Edwards and Amber Breckenridge will make a presentation.
Afternoon, Chair. Turn this baby on. Good afternoon, Chair Cruz, Commissioners, Executive Director Branham. My name is Amber Breckenridge, and I'm the Project Manager in the Asset and Investment Team of the Development and Investment Department.
I'm Amy Edwards, the Asset and Investment Manager.
We are here today to give you an update on the property plans and next steps for board approval. Back in February 2019, we came to the board to adopt new real estate policies for valuation, acquisition, and management and disposition and leasing. As part of that adoption, staff was asked to create property plans for each of the properties in our portfolios. We've spent the last few months doing that. Property plans are intended to specifically, explicitly, and transparently link to the agency's strategic, financial, and social equity goals. So each property does include a strategic, a financial, and an equity objective, as well as property information and leasing and development activities. This information provides clarity on the properties and the strategic alignment, as well as gives us guidance for negotiations. The property plans are broken into 3 sections: strategic considerations, property information, and development goals and objectives. The property considerations reside within the top of the property plan in a gray box, as we like to call it, and these are required to be approved by the board, the items that are in the gray box, and that includes any modifications to those. For example, if it's determined that an strategic objective changes for one of the properties, we have to bring that back for recommendation for approval by the board. Property plans will also be included in all the property transactions that come before you for approval as either an exhibit as an informational item, just as a reference guide, or if there are changes for adoption of those changes to the property plan. The objectives, the property information and the development goals and objectives are going to be updated on a regular basis as activities continue throughout the processes or information is updated. I just want to go in quickly into what a property plan actually looks like. And this is a closer look at it and the information that it shares. This is the gray box where the strategic considerations are at. And it includes the acquisition date and purchase of the property plan objective, the strategic plan objective, the sustainability plan objective, and the equity objective for interim and development activities if there's a development on the site. These goals and objectives are continuing to be refined as we move along in the process and will be finalized before we bring it back to the board for approval. The property information section is broken out into 3 subsections: property characteristics, neighborhood, and due diligence. The property characteristics are the basic property information: the address, tax lot, lot size. Neighborhood gives it information about the URA and zoning. And due diligence has the book value, most recent updated appraisal value, and environmental information. The development goals and objectives section is intended to be populated with interim activity strategy, the phase of development, concepts, and major milestones and deadlines. For properties that are inactive, there would be less information just because we're not going through a development at that time, so we wouldn't have as much information there. In this example, it's an active project, so all the categories are filled in with including project manager and the team member, so it's really easy to see who's involved in that project. There's also an area down at the bottom where we can see when they're coming or if they already have come to our financial investment committee or the board. The property plan objective that's within the strategic consideration area is the overarching plan for the property. Staff have been working to define the objective categories for those properties. They would create a common understanding of how each property in our portfolio contributes to the agency's strategic goals. Since our portfolio encompasses a wide range of properties, it's important for us to be able to distinguish between the properties that are revenue generating and will continue to generate that revenue for year to year, those that can be developed and then held as an operating asset, or developed, sold and developed for other agency objectives, or as a remnant for something that should be transferred out of our portfolio. And these, again, these categories is sort of in draft form right now, and we continue to work on refining those, and those will be finalized before we come to the board for approval as well. The next few slides, I just wanted to give a couple of examples of the properties in our portfolio that would go into those sort of categories that I just talked about. An example of an operating asset that we would hold are, let me try to do this, so the Inn of the Convention Center, which is in the OCC URA. This is Lentz Commons in Lentz Town Center, Union Station, and Station Place Garage, which is just north of Union Station. These properties have a demonstrated net operating income, and that net operating income is a high priority for our agency's strategic plan, and the net operating income is expected to generate revenue and a steady financial return. These properties would also have a strategy for operations and capital improvements. Operating assets that we would sell, where there's still a high priority in the agency strategic plan, but they also have a community benefit or a financial outcome for the sale of the asset. These properties would include the 240 Northeast MLK lot, which is also the Voz Day Labor site in Central East Side, the Bakery Block, or where Z House is in Lentz Town Center, and this is the Old Town Lofts commercial space in Old Town Chinatown. Halsey 106 in Gateway, ODOT blocks on the Central East Side, 92H in Lentz Town Center, and the Broadway Corridor Post Office are all examples of assets that are in an active phase of pre-development, where the redevelopment of the site is a high priority for the agency and is currently within staff work plan and is expected to generate a financial return. Properties with no active pre-development activities, like the 3620 Northeast MLK parking lot in Northeast Portland, the AIP building in Lentz Town Center, the Metro Plaza, which is directly east from the Convention Center, and Block R, which is in the Broadway corridor, are still a priority in the agency strategic plan and are expected to have a financial return, but they don't have an immediate explicit strategy for redevelopment at this time. Remnant properties, such as the Albina Triangle, which is a small park in North Portland, the Holman Dock, which is on the east side in the East Bank Esplanade area, the River Place Marina, which is a boat moorage facility in South Waterfront, and what we call the RD Small Lots, which is directly north of Union Station, but directly next to the railroad tracks. These are all undevelopable parcels and are not part of Prosper Portland's mission. And these are properties that are likely to continue to be served for the public, and we would like to transfer those to either a public partner or another community entity to take those over. And I will now turn it over to Amy to talk about key takeaways and next steps.
First, I'd like to commend Ember and our entire development investment team for the work that has gone into this. The first key takeaway is that through their collaboration and through a thorough examination of our portfolio, we now have a shared understanding of the assets in our portfolio. We understand the strategic alignment or misalignment of those assets in our portfolio, and we now have a method of communicating both internally and externally around these assets. And finally, it's highlighted through this process of discussion and consolidation and collaboration how important it is to develop a methodology not only for affecting our strategic objectives, but creating a shared and understandable and communicable methodology for discussing the performance on both a property level as well as a portfolio level. To that end, our next steps is developing those strategies. First, the strategy for disposition, whether it be for those remnant properties or a strategy for developing the properties that we have currently in the develop hold category, which whether it be due to market timing or to a resource constraint on a staff level or within our financial resources, to create that plan in both the short and the long term for affecting those strategic goals. So we will be working on that in the near future, as well as coming back to the board for approval of these property plans once we've finalized the categories that Ember has mentioned. And with regard to the performance methodology, applying that methodology to our portfolio level reporting, which also will be coming back to the board in the future. Thank you. Any questions?
So are the plans, or will the plans be available to the public? Are they on the website?
They're still in draft form, so once they will be completed, we'll discuss how we disseminate them or make them available to the public.
Okay, so that hasn't been decided yet?
No, not yet.
Other questions?
No, just a comment. I just want to say thank you. It was helpful to have everything organized in this way. We appreciate the work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say thanks very much for your great work. I think this is a really good decision-making tool. I think it'll help us manage the portfolio much better. So really, thanks a lot. This is great.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on my comment, like, I do think it's important that we strategize on how, I mean, a key goal for this was to be transparent and have it available to the public. So thinking about how it's integrated into the website and all of that is an obviously important step.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to echo both the appreciation for the amount of work, and in some ways it seems really obvious that this should all be in one place, but the amount of time that it takes to put it together is quite an undertaking, so I really want to appreciate that. And we certainly intend to have these available. I think in an ideal world, you could go and either search by what are you planning to develop, what are you planning to hold, and have it be categorized. Would also love to see it as a map where you can click on the property and learn more. So I think we need to do some digging with our IT team and just understand how that all works, but we certainly want them to be publicly available. That is part of the reason, is just to have kind of radical transparency and have the information, particularly what is in the gray box and what is in that first characteristics. I think we want to make sure, there are some things that are just internal notes of like, who's the project manager and when was the meeting, that probably doesn't need to be updated as regularly as it would take to keep those up to date, but certainly what's in the gray box and the characteristics of when did we acquire it, how much did we acquire it for, should be readily available. So we'll work on that, and when we come back in August or September, we'll have more information on that. Please.
On that note, will this database or the format that you're following have any information that would be publicly available related to the commercial tenanting program? Because I know that that's something that if, say, an entrepreneur or business owner wanted to look around for available properties, would they be able to search that through this particular tool?
Good. Now, at this time, we definitely want to make that information available as well on the website. I don't know yet if it's going to be linked to this particular document or series of documents, but that's the intent, is to have that be able to be a searchable tool as well.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so next we have item 12. This is an action item approving the terms of the Halsey 106 transaction involving the development of Prosper Portland-owned real property at Northeast Halsey and Northeast 106th Avenue in the Gateway Regional Center. Thea Munchel and Laura Alcenas will present. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chair Cruz, Commissioners. Start again. Chair Cruz, Commissioners, Director Brannon. Thank you for your time this afternoon to consider the items before you as they relate to Halsey 106 development in the Gateway Regional TIF District. My name is Thea Munchel. I am project manager here at Prosper Portland in the Development Department. I will be presenting to you this afternoon along with Laura Alcenas, who is a loan officer with us in the Asset and Investment Department. We are going to introduce you to the project at Gateway Discovery Park that we are calling Halsey 106, the items you'll be authorizing, how this project aligns with our strategic plan, the financing associated with the project, as well as the future enrollment in the Affordable Commercial Tenanting Program. In addition, we have members of the development team and of the development team here this afternoon to answer any questions that you may have in addition to what we present. So today we are asking for your support in authorizing a 99-year ground lease for the property. We would authorize 3 commercial property redevelopment loans and authorize a construction funding agreement for the ground floor commercial space. Our strategic plan prioritizes the initiation of redevelopment projects that are community serving, neighborhood scale, and in line with community-driven district action plans that are tailored to community expressed priorities and opportunities. The Gateway Action Plan emphasized the creation of a vibrant and active Halsey-Weidler business district that is well connected to the Gateway Transit Center. And the development site at Halsey 106 was specifically identified as a priority project of the community. It was also very important to the community that the project be of high design and mixed income and have an active ground use that supports the programming of the park. But really, this project touches on many priorities within our strategic plan, including jobs. One of the construction of the project will create over 100 construction jobs. We're also developing an office space for human solutions, and approximately 40 staff members will reside within that office on a day-to-day basis. The project leverages many different partnerships throughout the city and private partners as well. So this project not only leverages the partnership that we had with Parks when we acquired the site, but it also is a great partnership with Portland Housing Bureau, and it creates a really unique project. And in addition, we'll have the ground floor commercial space that will be owned by Prosper Portland and enrolled in our Affordable Commercial Tenant Program and expand our prosperity initiatives into East Portland. This rendering shows Halsey 106 from the southeast. In the foreground, you see the Gateway Discovery Park, a 3-acre neighborhood park jointly acquired and developed by Prosper Portland and the Portland Bureau of Parks and Recreation. Halsey 106 will be a 6-story mixed-use, mixed-income project that fronts the park to the south and east and Gateway's main commercial district, the Halsey-Weidler Business District. Before I get into the project details, I want to take a moment to acknowledge how this project is one of just many great things happening in Gateway right now. PBOT recently completed a streetscape improvement along the Halsey-Weidler Business District, which has improved the sidewalks, the East Island, and has provided much-needed safety crossing infrastructure for the neighborhood. In addition, we invested over $200,000 into 16 businesses along the business district in advance of those improvements to help stabilize existing long-term businesses in the district. And of course, the wonderful Gateway Discovery Park, which opened in August 2018 and has just been an amazing asset to the residents of the area. In addition, I want to point out that this project went before City Council this morning and was unanimously approved for the Portland Housing Bureau's portion of funding for this project. Halsey 106 is a 75-unit multifamily mixed-use development. 52 of those units are income restricted at or below 60% AMI. 23 of the units are market rate units, which are unrestricted and currently performing at approximately 60 to 80% AMI. In addition, there will be 11,000 square feet of office space for Human Solutions and 11,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space that will be owned by Prosper Portland. So here is another view of the project where you can see the mix of the uses more clearly. The ground floor commercial space opens both not only onto the Halsey Street, but also onto Gateway Discovery Park. Above that and facing Halsey, on the second floor, you see the office. And the mixed income housing units are set to the back in the 6th-story tower. What's something that's really unique about this project is the way in which the low-income units and the market rate units are blended throughout the project. So it's a truly integrated mixed income project where people will be living side by side within the project as neighbors. So this project has been a long time in the making. We purchased the site in 2008 in partnership with Parks. Immediately after that acquisition, we worked to do some work around environmental remediation, as well as complete a master plan in partnership with Parks. In 2015, we began marketing the site through a series of RFPs and ultimately took the project back out through the notice of availability of funding with the Portland Housing Bureau and awarded the project in 2016 to the development team that's here today. In 2018, the Gateway Discovery Park opened, and in 2019, we will close on the financing, begin construction, and have a project that will be operational in 2021. So a project like these that take many years also take a lot of community participation. So again, this kind of takes us back to the time from which we solicited the site and selected Human Solutions and Girding Edelin as our partner. Through the original NOFA, the project development team proposed a 40-unit, 100% affordable mixed project. And at that time, we worked with the developer to make sure that the project had the mix of income levels and the mix of uses that the Gateway community was looking to see in this project. So through that, the development team went back out into the community and led a series of community engagement activities to better understand what those values were and have done a tremendous job of implementing them and incorporating them into this project. In 2018, they took the project back to the community with incorporating those changes and to kind of reveal the final project design, at which point in time they heard additional feedback from the community, and they worked to make the design more in line with what the community wanted to see on the park. And then since that point in time, we've been working in cooperation to finance the project. And I just want to point out that this project is putting together a mix of complicated funding sources, and it's also at a time when construction costs are at an unprecedented high, and that the market conditions in Gateway are not performing at the same levels as other parts of our city. So there's a combination of financing and market forces that came together to create the structure and the financing and the programming that we're approving today. And at that point in time, we took the project back to the community, and that's been in the last 2 months, and updated them on the project. And as part of that work, we shifted units to make more of them affordable. And there was a mix of responses from our community at that time. I would say that many residents were excited and were interested in how they could be a resident within the building, and others were concerned about further investment of affordable housing in an area that's already seen a lot. So with that in mind, we still really believe that this is a great project and is going to be transformative for the Gateway District, and we're really excited to advance it, and also very excited that it will be a new project in our Affordable Commercial Tenant Pilot Program, and that will be an additional place for us to engage with community and to deliver on the values of the Gateway community.
Thanks. Good afternoon. So as Thea mentioned, this has taken a long time to get here and has involved a lot of people. It's also represents one of the most significant and visible direct investments that Prosper Portland would be making in the Gateway TIF district. We're proposing combined a $9.5 million initial direct investment of TIF into the project. So here you see the funding summary. Overall, it's an almost $33 million project that includes, as Thea mentioned, multiple uses, as well as multiple funding sources. It's a notably complex transaction. It involves both low-income housing tax credits as well as new market tax credits, investors, partnership with Portland Housing Bureau, and private debt. So Prosper Portland's proposed investment would take several forms. To support the market rate housing, we're proposing almost $5.9 million in loans to the project. A portion of that, about $1.9 million, is intended to be relatively short-term debt, expected to be repaid after 7 years and able to be redeployed. The remainder, about $4 million, is really the subordinate, long-term, cash flow dependent subsidy to the market rate housing units that really supports those units in, as Thea mentioned, a market of Gateway where current market rents do not support the cost of new construction there. The remaining proposed direct investment would be the $3.5 million into the retail. This would deliver to Prosper Portland core and shell via a direct funding, construction funding agreement. Prosper Portland intends to own and manage that portion, as Thea mentioned, as part of our Affordable Commercial Tenanting Pilot Program. And finally, Prosper Portland proposes for the property, which we currently own with Parks, to ground lease it via a 99-year ground lease to support our very long-term strategic and financial sustainability objectives. Now I'll turn it over to Thea to talk about equity, community benefits.
Great, thank you. The Halsey 106 project will immediately create over 100 construction jobs that will pay state of Oregon prevailing wages. The Portland Housing Equity Policies apply, which includes and mirrors our business and workforce equity policies. These include the subcontractor equity programs with a goal of 20% of hard construction cost awarded to co-bid firms. The city's workforce training and hiring program that requires a minimum of 20% apprentice utilization with goals of 18% minority and 9% female participation. In addition, Section 3 requirements are a part of this project, which will require a preference is given to low-income persons and businesses residing in the community where the project is located. And due to the particular complications around Section 3 reporting, Portland Housing Bureau will lead the monitoring of these policies in cooperation with our team here. LMC is the general contractor for this project and is currently working to complete their GMP, but we have every indication that the project will come in at 20% or 21% co-bid awarded forms. I also want to point out that this project predates the small business policy requirements for the soft cost portion of this project. However, I think we should note that that portion of the project is also coming in above our targeted goals and is performing at 27% co-bid certified firms. And in addition to these equity goals, I should also point out that our green building policy applies to this project and that the development team is aiming for LEED Gold. And finally, I want to make sure that we talk a little more in depth about the Affordable Commercial Tenanting Program that this project will be a part of. So as I have mentioned, Prosper Portland will be the owner of the ground floor retail space and will prioritize leasing activities for that will reduce barriers to entry for underrepresented businesses. So this will be our fourth project enrolled into the Affordable Commercial Tenant Pilot Program, and we have been learning a lot from each one of those different projects. Each one performs with different conditions in different market spaces, but nonetheless, there's been a lot that we have learned that I think we can apply to this particular project. One of the things that we are working to do is to move immediately into work with the project architect and our commercial consultant to begin further refining this space from the cold, dark shell that the original construction contract will deliver to us. We imagine, so that work is really like intended so that we can begin tenanting this space and marketing this space concurrent with the turnover of the building to us. We're really trying to reduce that amount of time that the space is vacant, and we're also really trying to be conscious of the lessons we've learned about the barriers that emerging and small businesses have when taking on new construction projects like this one. So what we've seen is that the cold dark shell project is a lot of work for a small business to take on and feel confident moving through. So what we'd like to do is further develop this space to more of a trades-ready space like we're doing at the 10Y project. So once we have those spaces further developed, we hope that they'll be more marketable to the tenants that we're looking for as part of the program. I would also like to point out, as part of that, we will be coming back to the board for additional support for those build-out costs. And right now we're assuming, based off of our previous experience, that that'll be an additional $300 a square foot of investment for the commercial space. I would like to also say that Gateway, while this will be a groundbreaking project for Gateway, there's no comparable, but what we also know is that commercial vacancy rates in Gateway are low, and we feel confident that we can achieve rents in the mid-teens to low 20s that are triple net, that both satisfy the program requirements of the Affordable Commercial Tenant Program and will provide a return on our investment as an agency. Okay, any questions?
Well, that was a great overview. I'm thinking, I understand we have a couple of guests here, Andy Miller from Human Solutions and Joel Sherman from Gerding Eadlin. And I'm thinking maybe we should hear from them and then do our questions. Would that be okay? Thank you. Welcome, and thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us. Good afternoon. My name's Andy Miller. I'm the Executive Director at Human Solutions. We are a nonprofit whose mission is to counter the forces that give rise to poverty and homelessness, and we've been doing that work in East Portland and East Multnomah County for over the last 30 years. Very pleased to be here today, and I want to start by giving a huge thanks to the staff at Prosper Portland who worked pretty tirelessly with us over the last 4 years since we submitted our proposal on this project to overcome the kinds of hurdles that you have when you are trying to develop a project with this level of complexity. As I shared with the Portland City Council this morning, a big lesson learned on this project is that often doing the right thing means not doing the simplest thing. And we certainly encountered the barriers of doing that. So a huge thanks to folks up and down the line here at Prosper who worked with us. Also want to thank the Gateway Neighborhood, the Gateway Area Business Association, the East Portland Action Plan, and countless other neighborhood stakeholders who came out to the various public forums and meetings that we held in cooperation with our architects, Dave Oddie at Holst, to really hammer away at the program and design for this site. We didn't come into this with a fully baked idea of what needed to be at the project. Our mission drove us to be sure to be developing affordable housing, which is an enormous need, not just across East Portland, but very particularly in Gateway, which has seen double-digit rent increases for, I believe, each of the last 3 years. So it's not the highest rents in Portland, but it's an area where rents are probably rising the fastest. It was really the community that pushed us toward the idea of doing our first mixed-income housing project. I thought that was in the end, a great decision. It will result in the development of a neighborhood-based project that will begin a level of economic integration within the community. The integration of the street-facing commercial retail, I think, was vital to folks who've been advocating in Gateway, particularly with Prosper Portland and its predecessor PDC, for investments that promote Gateway as a business district. They also pushed very hard that the design of this building be catalytic and attract additional investments. It's on a park. It's will be one of the most significant sites on the skyline as you enter the town center. And we wanted to create a project that was eye-catching and inviting and complemented the park well and interacted well with the streetscape and thought not just about Gateway as it exists, but Gateway as people dream it could exist in the next 15 to 20 years. And that's really, well, it's not up there anymore, but that's the design you see. From our perspective as an anti-poverty organization, the notion of having affordable housing integrated with market rate housing, thriving retail, and a brand new park, as well as our organization's headquarter office and service center, meaning there will be services available to residents directly from staff who work on site, and having our board meet there and interact directly with the kind of communities that we are in the business of creating is absolutely critical. Doing it in East Portland, an area that is facing significant pressures for residential displacement from rising rents and rising property values, it seems incredibly timely. Last but not least, I think the integration with the park is something we see as hugely complementary in terms of uses. The idea of mixed-income housing that includes some family-sized units, bringing kids from all backgrounds into very direct access with that park as their backyard, will be a huge benefit to the residents. And at the same time, having 24/7 eyes on the park is something that the neighborhood spoke very favorably of as part of the project design and why we put the housing on the park-facing side. So we're thrilled to be at this milestone. A lot of work still to go once we get into construction. But this is, we think, an important project that has not just import by providing affordable housing, but by truly providing a neighborhood and community-based asset for Gateway, and something that will serve the neighborhood for perhaps the next 100 years. So thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jill Sherman with Gerding Edlin. Thanks for having me. I'll be brief and then available if there are specific questions about the project. I just wanted to kind of emphasize a couple things that have already been said. One is this is a complicated project, and it may be the most complicated project I've ever worked on. And I have worked on some very complicated projects. And again, you know, in some respects, that was to get this mix of uses that we really wanted to see, and a really high-quality, very urban form of design and construction in this location to serve as a catalyst and really an asset to the community. We have certainly had bumps in the road, as every project does, and I will say the reason that we're able to sort of be at this really exciting point and be here asking for your approval today is really because of the way the different partners have worked together to solve and find ways to get around those bumps in the road. And so, you know, and worked in some cases very quickly to work with us to solve challenges. And so I'd like to really thank the staff at Prosper, including Thea and Laura, Lisa, and of course Kimberly's leadership to help do that, without which we really wouldn't be here today. And then the only other thing is that, you know, Thea mentioned we're really integrating the market rate or the middle income units and the affordable units. And I just want to emphasize that what we mean by that isn't like one floor is one or one stack of units is one, literally unit by unit. So as we've created the condominium units, we've needed to create for this complex ownership structure to use these different tax credits. We have gone unit by unit with the middle income and the affordable so that truly it is seamless and one integrated community. And that's actually pretty unusual for a project using low-income housing tax credits, and took some work to get everybody there, but I think it will serve as a model in the future. So rather than what's typically been done, which is, you know, the top floor has the market rate units and lower floors might have the affordable units, instead to really mix throughout the building the market rate and the affordable. So I wanted to emphasize that for you as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. You have questions or comments? Okay.
Yeah, it's been such a complex project, and we've been briefed on this beforehand, so we understand some of the complexity and all the flow charts, where the money flows from, et cetera. I'm curious, just because we're all going in this together, what models you've drawn from in terms of similarly complex, not just transactions, but complex mixtures of different uses, different users, et cetera, because this is a signature project, and it needs to be obviously heavily programmed and heavily managed as such. I'm just curious if what you've been looking at as sort of a model for this type of project.
Sure. So I think one reference point for us is we've been partnering with our partners in East Portland, the Rosewood Initiative, together with Purpose-Built Communities, which is a national nonprofit based in Atlanta, Georgia, the East Lake area, that really piloted a method of approaching highly concentrated poverty with a mixed income pipeline of housing, an educational pipeline, and community assets and community wellness. So all quarterbacked by an entity they would call a community quarterback. So we haven't, I don't want to say this project fully implements their model. We're actually looking at doing more of a full purpose-built network member model in the Rosewood neighborhood. But the notion of doing mixed income housing together with a wellness asset like a park, a nonprofit service center that's based in an area that's transit-oriented and is seeing the changing demographics that Gateway is seeing, it really borrows quite a bit from the purpose-built model. I think the nut that we're all trying to crack is how do we do place-based work with a strong people-based equity lens? How do we focus on the needs of the people who traditionally get left out when our community does place-based work? And we think projects like this that have multiple assets within them, intentional income mixing, and are built in a neighborhood that appears to be in the process of transitioning, but anchors in long-term housing security for some of the lowest income residents of Gateway, is a start. So I think that's, if there's a model that we're riffing off of, I would say it is that, and it purpose-built is a strong reference point.
Sorry, but no specific housing project that you would say that they got it right, that They got the mix right, they got the programming right, they got the on-site management right.
I guess I would point a little bit to Gray's Landing, a REACH project where they co-located their headquarters with a fairly ambitious housing project is similar. We've noticed other organizations have done that. Catholic Charities similarly built a headquarters project over on, I think it's 26th and Powell, co-located with one of their most ambitious housing communities, Hacienda. So I think many of the organizations are doing that. It wasn't something we had done. And frankly, if I remember correctly, prior to my arrival at Human Solutions 4 years ago, there was a plan for a different headquarters site that was going to be co-located with a shelter, but that project ended up going in a different direction. So it made sense to think about integrating it in Gateway.
Other comments, questions?
I just wanted to ask, well, first of all, just state, I just think this is a really impressive project, and congratulations to bringing it close to fruition here. And what a dizzying list of sources, so the complexity is not lost on us. I think one of the biggest risks I see moving forward here is with the retail. Just wondering if either of you guys have any thoughts or words of wisdom in terms of making sure that that retail space gets leased up well.
I mean, I think Thea hit on some of those when she talked about building the spaces out more to make it a little bit more turnkey so that somebody isn't faced with, it's, if you haven't been through the process before, it's pretty intimidating to walk into a space that, doesn't even have its heating yet and only has emergency lighting, and imagine your business there. And so I think that build out will be really important to attract the tenants. I think the rents, what you're targeting is a very reasonable, attractive rent for those businesses. And I think a lot of outreach as well, and really targeting, deciding what the community sort of wants or thinks is important to have there, and then really trying to target and reach out to those specific businesses is important for a couple reasons. I mean, one is because you obviously want to achieve that vision, but the other thing is if the community knows you've tried and for some reason you're not able to secure that tenant, they will have been part of that process and will understand why the space didn't work right now for a particular type of tenant, perhaps. So I think, and again, Prosper is really taking the lead in partnership with Human Solutions, and we'll be there as well to help on tenanting the space, but those would be some of my thoughts.
We did some early community outreach, and the retail came up quite a bit in terms of what people in the neighborhood want, and it's many things you would expect. Uses that complement the park, coffee shops, a brew pub, a greengrocer where people could buy fresh sandwiches. We heard a number of interesting ideas. We talked to our staff. They'd love to see bagels. They're going to be working there every day. Instant customers. So there's different ways to think about that. I do think having the objectives around that space really clarified. And I say that to raise, we've been in contact with a couple of nonprofits about thinking about a social enterprise, one that is a culturally specific organization that runs a barista training program that could partner with a coffee shop there. That might not be your highest rent generator quickly, but that could meet some different objectives of Prosper Portland. And so I think being really clear about what objectives you have would guide our continued involvement in the community. But just to be absolutely clear, we came to a very early understanding that, our lane is not commercial tenanting in a retail space, so that's going to be Prosper's responsibility, and we are consultative at best on that role, but we will be neighbors there, and so we'd love to be involved, and we did spend some time with the community hearing what their desires are.
Great. All right, well, thanks very much. I think this is a really exciting project, and just kudos to you for all you've put into this and how innovative it is too. I really like the mixture of all the uses and the mixture of market and affordable housing. I think that as you were saying, goes to issues of dignity and equity and other things that are great for the tenants, so that's super. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you, commissioners, would you like to hear from Thea and Laura again? Do you have more questions? No? Okay. All right, then. Would someone like to make a motion to approve? Give me 1 second. Resolution number 7321.
So moved?
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks for your great work. Okay, all right, so next up, we're going to handle the next items kind of in two parts. And first, we're going to convene the local contract review board. So the meeting of the Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners is now adjourned. The members of the Prosper Portland Board will now meet as the agency's local contract review board to consider the next item on the agenda. And Lisa Aboif is here to do that.
Okay.
Welcome.
They're not here yet. Good afternoon, Chair Cruz and Commissioners. I'm Lisa Aboif. I'm the Director of Development and Investment, and I'm actually here on behalf of our project manager, Eric Jacobson, who has been leading our work with Mortenson, ZGF, and Capacity Commercial on the 100 Multnomah project. Eric is lucky enough to be on vacation on the day that an item comes to commission, so I have to learn this skill. No. So as the chair mentioned, we are seeking the board's approval as a twofold action. First, we're requesting the board take action as the local contract review board on improving findings related to the exemption from requirements to award via a low bid basis for the design and construction of approximately 120,000 square feet of an office tower at 100 Multnomah that would be above the Convention Center Hotel garage that is currently under construction. And then upon approval of those findings, we are seeking the board's approval of a design-build contract with Mortenson Construction for the completion of design and eventually the construction of the office building. This action would allow Mortenson and ZGF to continue forward with design through to construction documents as well as permitting. And should the Prosper Portland Board decide to move forward with holding the final phase of construction, that would occur at the time that we have a final contract price and schedule for Mortenson, which will happen at 75% construction drawings, and we would have to come back to the board for that approval. Alternatively, the contract is written so that the product of the final design and permitting is transferable to a third party from Prosper Portland with Mortenson's approval. So in terms of how the project aligns with our strategic plan and other plans, including the financial sustainability plan, the project would create the opportunity to introduce new mixed-use development that would complement both the Convention Center Hotel, as well as the Lloyd community. It would contribute to job growth opportunities in the Central City and in the Lloyd District as a significant employment area for the City of Portland. And finally, it would financially optimize the air rights that otherwise sit there latent above the Convention Center Hotel garage for Prosper Portland, as well as create new revenue streams for the City of Portland as partners in this effort. So just a little bit of background for the community. I think the board's been here for many of these visits that we've made over time. The concept of an office tower being built above the garage was first considered and acted upon by the board in late 2016 when you approved our investment in the Convention Center Hotel garage. And at that time, we decided to include approximately $3 million in the garage itself as superstructure to accommodate a future office tower. In early 2018, once the garage construction was underway, we returned to the board for approval to start design on the office tower, and then we entered into a contract with Mortenson and ZGF to complete a concept level of design, just to understand kind of the costing and the overall massing and potential market for an office tower at a cost of about $500,000. In early 2019, we then returned to the board to seek approval to move forward from concept design into schematic designs at a cost of approximately $1.1 million. And with your approval today, we would be seeking an additional $1.5 million that would complete all design and permitting work related to the work that's been underway for the past about year and a half. And our total investment would increase from approximately $4.6 million to just over $6 million. So as a reminder for folks, the 100 Multnomah office tower is proposed to be above what is titled here as Block 49 Garage. It's just to the west of the new Convention Center Hotel and just to the north of the Oregon Convention Center. And prior board direction, at the time of your action in early 2019, approving moving forward in schematic design, the board gave us a lot of direction and kind of guidance around where we could mitigate other risks related to design. That included making sure that we are maximizing air rights and the financial benefits of the site to prosper Portland and the city, to really dig in and understand the structural code constraints that we are being posed with a code change that's coming up at the end of 2019 that I'll share a bit more about further on in the presentation. And then last but not least, really thinking about alternative paths forward with the product that gets created out of this design process, given that one of the largest risks to building any office building is really in its tenanting. And so we've been moving forward on all three of those priorities. And what you see on the right are kind of staff's recommendations to respond to the direction that the board gave us over the past couple of months. So this gives you a sense of what we've been doing since last visiting with the board in the spring. Based on your guidance, we've been undertaking first and foremost, refining the design and getting to 50% design development. We'll share a little bit of the renderings that are coming forward, as well as a more updated cost estimate that's come out of that work. The design team the design build team will be taking that design to the Portland Design Commission as part of the land use review process tomorrow. Second, we hired KPFF as a consultant to really provide us feedback on what the impact would be if we delayed moving forward with design and had to regroup and build the office tower under new structural code starting early next year. And then last but not least, we did adjust our contract with the broker and have included marketing the property for sale, and I'll give an update on that as well. So this first slide, we wanted to share just a couple of pictures of where we are and what Design Commission will see tomorrow. As a reminder, the project includes about 120,000 square feet of office. It is built just to the north and above the parking garage. And the garage will complete in August 2019, so clearly the construction of the office tower, which would start thereafter. And then also just for those who are curious, the hotel will also complete end of 2019 with it opening early next year. What the refinements that we've been making over the past couple of months with the design build team have included removing any new parking floors to support new office use. So you may remember it was one of the decision packages we brought as we were going through design refinements. We've also made some changes to the ground floor and footprint adjustments, mostly regarding circulation and amenities. And then we also added a refined facade treatment just in preparation for Design Commission consideration. And with your approval today, we would be on track to complete 100% design development by August and 75% construction documents and submission of building permit package by November 2019. And that's a really key date because it's also the date we would get an updated number from Mortensen. So on the code changes, kind of that second piece of work that we've been moving forward with, as I mentioned, we put KPFF under contract to take a look at what the potential impacts would be. We had heard early on, going through a pre-app process with the Bureau of Development Services, that they're looking to adopt a new structural code in October, with the code going into effect in January of next year. The findings by KPFF is that the impact on our investments to date would be that we would likely have to undertake a redesign, which would cost delays to the schedule and likely increases in construction costs and fees, and would also have an impact on how large the office tower above the garage could be, and would likely reduce the overall office footprint by about 20,000 square feet. No, go ahead.
So it also would impact the amount of parking spaces.
Yeah,
available,
yeah.
Which is.
And And then the last path of work that we've been undertaking is we've been working with our broker. We've expanded their scope. They had actually started a soft launch on kind of this concept of selling the product once entitled into the market. They've had about 6 inquiries just with that soft launch. Following today's action and with the certainty of kind of moving forward with the design build contract and having a completed design and guaranteed price, they will move forward with listing the air rights, the in-place improvements, which is that superstructure cost that we originally invested in the garage, as well as the design product and the guaranteed maximum price that comes out of the work that you're approving today. The listing, offers, and selection is anticipated to occur over the next 2 to 3 months, so sometime in the fall, which aligns pretty nicely with the November timeline. We would have clarity about both who's interested and what their proposals are and who's the preferred proposal that we could bring back to you. And in the meanwhile, we're also keeping open discussions with both private tenanting interests via our broker and public tenanting interests through our own personal partnerships with other public entities. With regards to equity, agnostic of kind of what the path forward is, whether we sell the product or we self-perform or we perform with a partner, our business and workforce equity policies and green building policies will apply. And we did want to highlight that currently the professional design phase is anticipated to perform just for the tower, is anticipated to perform at 22 to 24%, with our goal being around 20%. And then we did want to share Mortenson's past performance on the garage, and we're getting pretty close to the end, so this is probably a close reflection of what it will look like for the full construction of the garage. So again, coming back to the 2 major actions, the first action that we are here today before you with is adopting findings in support of an exemption from low bid contracting. This is based on a number of things. First, that Mortenson was selected through a competitive process led by Metro that led them to be the developer and the contractor for the Convention Center Hotel. Second, that Mortenson was the entity who then proceeded to construct the Convention Center Hotel garage, and so has kind of unique knowledge about the superstructure and the interface between the office tower and that superstructure. And third, building on the 2016 action by the board exempting the previous design build contract with Mortenson. We believe that collectively all of those both result in cost and schedule efficiencies given Mortenson's familiarity with the garage structure, as well as the overall construction conditions on the site, and mitigate risks to the agency. And then the second action you would be taking based on approving the findings would be to approve the design build contract with Mortenson for an additional $1.4 million investment. This would, again, complete construction documents and permitting and increase our total design services cost to about $3.1 million. And with that, I will take any questions.
Questions or comments?
Can you just again clarify, when's it going to go out to bid at the subcontractor level? Is it in December?
When would it go out to bid?
Oh, well, we wouldn't. We're trying to sell it beforehand, so we're not going to even go through.
I would assume, I guess, if we were to identify a private tenant or a public tenant that we would prefer to move forward with rather than selling the product, I would anticipate we could go out to bid early next year. Because they'll have permits in, so they'll be ready to start to issue bidding packages. I think Mortenson, yes. Mike can answer.
Okay, do we have other comments or questions? All right, okay then. Then, would someone like to make a motion to approve resolution number 7323, adopting findings in support of and exempting the 100 Multnomah design build contract with Mortenson Construction from competitive bidding?
So moved.
Thank you. You have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, that passes unanimously. So now we will have the meeting of the Prosper Portland Local Contract Review Board is now adjourned, and the meeting of the Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners is reconvened. So now we would have a second motion, another motion for the second resolution, I should say, which is excuse me, resolution number 7324, authorizing a design-build contract with Mortensen Construction for design and construction of the 100 Multnomah office building. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so the next item is number 15. This is an action item authorizing the executive director to execute the collective bargaining agreement between Prosper Portland and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 75, Local 3769. And Sean Murray, Director of Human Resources, and Shelley Hack, Project Manager, will present. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Cruz, board members, Executive Director Branham. Good afternoon. I'm Sean Murray, Director of Human Resources. With me today is our union partner. Oh, thank you. Our union partner, Shelley Hack, who's the president of Council 75, Local 3769. We will be co-presenting on the process that we used today for this round of negotiations that led to the tentative agreement that is before the board to consider. Before the board for consideration is a tentative agreement that unanimously was ratified by our union partners in this 3-year agreement that aligns with both our cultural agreements and our financial sustainability plan. Today, we're requesting that the board give action or authorize the executive director to ratify the successor agreement with ASME Local 75.
So, good afternoon, Chair Cruz, Commissioners, Executive Director Brownham. My name is Shelley Hack. I'm a project manager here at Prosper Portland, and I'm also the president of ASME's Local 3769. And I'm pleased to join Sean here today to present the work of the collective bargaining team. The negotiating team was comprised of 5 members from both management and labor. The management representatives included Allison Keene, Justin Douglas, Sean Murray, Bobby Lee, and Selena Colson. The labor representatives included Amanda Parks, Kay Little, Courtney Kahn, and Bao Nguyen, and myself. It was a great team to work with, and I want to thank each of them for the time and the investment that they made in the process. And it was a really interesting process. In the past, Prosper Portland has used a positional approach to contract negotiations, each side coming to the table with the things that they wanted to change or to add to the contract, and then negotiating to get what they want. This round of negotiations, we shifted to an interest-based bargaining approach, which both labor and management felt was more in line with our cultural agreements. To help us understand how to manage that, what we call the IBB process, we engaged the services of the state's Employee Relations Board. They provided a day-long training that all of the members participated in, and then they also facilitated provided 1 day of direct facilitation. The training helped us learn how to use the IBB's 7 problem-solving approach. Thank you. Through which the team collaboratively identified the issues that we wish to address, identified the data needed to fully understand those issues, developed multiple ideas on how to address the issues, evaluated those ideas for how effectively they met the multiple interests that were identified by both parties, and then narrowed those options into reasonable solutions, and then concluded with a consensus vote on the options that were put forward. The elegance of this process is that both labor and management were working collaboratively to fully explore the interests of the other and to find solutions that met the interests of both parties. In the majority of instances, we were able to do so. And during the entire process, we used the new cultural agreements as a touchstone to guide our decision-making and help us move forward when we got stuck.
So Shelley just touched on the cultural agreements. About a year ago, the agency embarked on cultural change work, and we developed these cultural agreements that you see before you today. Essentially, these are agreements that the agency aspires to be in terms of being committed to innovation, learning, putting people first, excellence, and collaboration, as well as inclusion. So we use the cultural agreements as a framework for bargaining to reach an agreement. The cultural agreements were at the forefront when we had really sticky issues that we were trying to resolve to come up with solutions for our issues.
So we started the process with the Employee Relations Board training on February 7th, and then began formal negotiations on the 18th. The team met every Monday from 1 to 5 to work through the issues, including a full day on April 15th to discuss economic issues. The IBB process combines all of the economic issues into what they call an affinity bargaining day, or what we kind of shorthanded into economic bargaining. By isolating all of the economic issues into a separate bargaining day, it provided enough time for the team to really focus and fully consider the economic issues, the space to evaluate each possible solution in concert with other economic issues being considered, and then to identify the trade-offs that would enable us to address as many of the economic issues identified earlier in the process as was possible. Although we stumbled a bit at first, the IBB process proved to be pretty efficient. From initial training to your action today, it took 153 days, or just over 5 months. From the actual bargaining time, which began on February 14th and ended on May 20th, it took about 95 days. Now, part of that efficiency I attribute to the IBB process. The other part of that I attribute to the members who met every Monday, invested additional time in between the meetings to compile and review data, engaging with their respective groups, and coming to the meetings prepared and fully engaged in the discussion. I also want to say a special thank you to Selena Colson, who took on the enormous task of compiling the data, keeping notes, managing agendas, recording agreements, managing formal approval of those agreements, and generally keeping us all on track. She was also one of the reasons that we were able to keep things on track and on process. So when we got into the meat of the discussions, the issues the team identified fell into 4 different buckets. Economics, which included cost of living adjustments, salaries, benefits, and other issues that had a financial component. Housekeeping, which included topics such as changing the name from PDC to Prosper Portland, changing pronoun references from he, she to he, she, they to be more inclusive, and then updating some job classifications that had been added since the last CBA's negotiation. It also included performance management, which included discussions on the intent and use of performance improvement plans and the terms of trial service period. And then finally, general issues, which included discussions about better defining FTE, our full-time equivalent, and limited term employees, the reclassification process, and hours of work. In each of the categories, we moved the issues through the IBB process, reached consensus on the new CBA, which is before you today, which, as Sean mentioned, the members of ASME Local 3769 approved on June 20th on a 47-0 vote. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Sean to take you through the highlights of those agreements.
All right, so looking at the highlights of the agreement. As with the previous agreement, this is a 3-year contract. We connected our cultural agreements with some of the provisions of the new contract. So looking at the first one, putting people first. This contract allows for a 2% cost of living adjustment for each year of the contract. This is in comparison to a 1.5% cost of living adjustment from the previous contract. Excellence. This new contract provides provision that allows for a high-performing employees to receive a 3% increase for a 3-month period to coach employees with performance challenges. Innovation. There's a new provision in this contract that allows employees to cash out up to 40 hours of accrual vacation leave in a year. Learning. We agreed to continue the employee education fund from the prior contract and made the fund accessible to new employees after completion of their 180-day trial service period. This is in comparison to the previous contract where new employees had to wait a year before exercising the education fund. Collaboration. We have a new provision that allows for employees to opt out of their agency health insurance program for alternative health insurance program through their significant others agency. This allows for an employee to receive a cash incentive of $100 a month with a significant savings to the agency for employees opting out. And in inclusion, we have a new provision that allows employees to receive 8 hours of pay time off under our merit leave with a fully successful annual evaluation. Under the previous contract, employees could receive up to 40 hours of merit leave for exemplary work. After reviewing the data through our process, we found that it was very subjective and disproportionate in terms of how we administer the program. Now it's more inclusive. Lastly, as Shelley mentioned, we clarified language from the previous agreement. Some of the changes include ratification or classification, performance improvement plans, and employee trial service periods for new employees. Again, the agreement before the board is within the financial sustainability plan, which the board had previously approved. At this time, Shelley and I would take any questions regarding the process that you may have.
Questions or comments? Nope. Okay, all right, well, great job, thanks very much. You've a lot of hard work and really, really impressed with the process you went through. It's fantastic. So everyone seems happy.
Very rare in
Yeah, right.
contract negotiations turn out
That's what I
that
thought.
way. Yes.
How does that happen? All right. Well, would someone like to make a motion to approve Resolution 7325, authorizing the executive director to execute the collective bargaining agreement between Prosper Portland?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, thank you.
As a true believer of collective bargaining, I gladly second.
Second, okay. All right, all those in favor? All right, okay, motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so there are no further items, then the Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners meeting is now adjourned. I think that's record time at 4:30. Wow.